Joe Rogan, born August 11, 1967, is a podcaster, comedian, actor, and former TV presenter. His podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, is one of the world's biggest and most talked about, both in a negative and positive way, as the topics and guests are what you might call controversial. Born in New Jersey, Rogan began his career in comedy in 1988, and eventually signed an exclusive deal with Disney in 1994, and after that, his career took off. He got several roles as an actor in various television shows, started as a UFC commentator, and hosted the popular TV show Fear Factor between 2001 to 2006. Joe Rogan started his podcast The Joe Rogan Experience in 2009, and became one of the most popular podcasts in 2015, but more about that later in the video. Before we continue, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on videos like these. Joseph James Rogan, which is Joe's full name, is 3/4 Italian and 1/4 of Irish descent. His parents divorced when Rogan was 5 years old, and he has had no contact with his father since he was 7 years old. Rogan has mentioned that things could be quite violent at home, yet he does not want to complain about his childhood, but instead believes that his upbringing was good. Rogan's interest in martial arts came at an early age, and helped him develop his competitive instincts and self-confidence, but more importantly, Rogan gained perspective on who he himself was and what he was capable of. Rogan was actually good at martial arts, and won several competitions, and was even awarded state champion in 4 years in Taekwondo. He also practiced amateur kickboxing, but maybe that was what made him withdraw from martial arts when he, at the age of 21, began to suffer from frequent headaches, and feared that these would become permanent. Rogan then began studying at the University of Massachusetts in Boston, but dropped out early, as he found it, quote, totally pointless. In 1994, Rogan moved to Los Angeles and made his first national appearance on national television, on the MTV comedy show Half Hour Comedy Hour.
Smart women, they ask tough questions, you gotta give them real answers, right? They bimbos, they ask like real easy questions, you can tell them anything, right? They're like, what are you thinking about? Corn.
The performance was a success and led to Rogan being offered a 3-year exclusive contract with MTV, which he turned down. This started a bidding process among several different companies for winning Rogan over, and eventually Disney won the fight, coming to an agreement, and Rogan signed an exclusive deal with the multinational mass media and entertainment conglomerate. After a few years as an actor for several comedy series, Rogan started working for the mixed martial arts promotion Ultimate Fighting Championship, and interviewed the boxers backstage after the fight. Rogan remained here for 2 years, until 1999, as the trips to the events, which were mostly held in the countryside at the time, swallowed most of the income, so he decided to quit. However, Rogan made a comeback as a commentator at UFC events, and did 15 free shows in exchange for him and his friends getting free tickets. In the end, Rogan accepted pay for his role, and remained as a commentator until 2016. In 2001, Rogan was offered to host the US edition of Fear Factor. He first declined but was later convinced to take the job. It made Rogan rise in popularity nationally, and his stand-up gigs became increasingly popular. After Fear Factor, Rogan invested a lot in his stand-up career, and hired 2 people to accompany him around the country to film his performances. He also hosted the show Game Show in My Head, which he called a completely mindless form of entertainment. The short-lived CBS show was produced by Ashton Kutcher. In December 2009, Rogan and fellow comedian Brain Redban launched a free podcast which was first broadcasted on Ustream. In August, the show changed its name to The Joe Rogan Experience, and soon made its way into the top 100 podcasts list on iTunes. The podcast had broad width and covered current events, politics, philosophy, and many other topics. As of October 2015, the podcast was streamed 16 million times each month, making it one of the most popular free podcasts. On May 19, 2020, Rogan signed the largest license agreement in the podcast industry. Spotify had purchased the podcast to be completely exclusive on Spotify's platform until January 1, 2021. However, short clips from each show would be uploaded to YouTube. The podcast episodes are always released the day after they have been recorded, partly to keep them as current as possible but also to give the producers time to cut the podcast. In February 2022, Spotify removed 113 episodes of the show due to some of the episodes being perceived by some as racist and containing explicit language. Rogan himself is a strong supporter of freedom of expression and is not a fan of Spotify's decision to remove so many episodes from the podcast's catalog. As the years have gone by, the Joe Rogan Experience has taken more of a controversial turn, discussing subjects not always perceived as politically correct, which has made it even more popular. Joe Rogan supports the legalization of cannabis and believes that there are many benefits to using it. He also believes that LSD is good for exploring and improving our consciousness, and helps us to understand how the world works. Rogan himself claims to meditate on a daily basis, and also advocates so-called isolation boxes, where one is completely shut off from external impressions to improve and increase both mentally and physically performance. Although Joe Rogan is not an advocate of veganism, he is a strong believer that we should stop eating factory-farmed food and not support the abuse of animals mass-produced in inhumane ways, not only for the sake of the animals but also for our health. In January 2022, musician Neil Young posted an open letter in which he wrote that he will want to have his music removed from Spotify if the platform continues to have the Joe Rogan Experience on the streaming service. Young said that Spotify must take responsibility for the current situation and that Rogan was spreading fake news. 2 days later, Spotify removed Neil Young's music from the platform. What are your thoughts on Joe Rogan and his podcast? Does he cross the line by being controversial, discussing topics not politically correct, or is he what we need right now to preserve our freedom of speech? Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.